So yeah. But it was good. It was good.
But otherwise, you've been good. Yeah, we haven't actually caught up in a while.
Yeah, it's been a moment.
Yeah.
Literally, we're catching up on set.
Literally. Yeah. I traveled kidogo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was a really fun time, honestly.
Yeah, in Brazil, but
yeah, good to see friends, family.
Even watched a football match.
We went to what are they called? Flamengo, which is like I think the oldest team from Rio.
Okay.
So it's like the most well-supported team in Rio, and they were playing another Rio de Janeiro team. So it was like a local derby. Yeah. And I missed the Arsenal-Tottenham game for that game, so I was like, man. And then these guys lost. Flamengo lost. So me in my mind, I'm like, I hope Arsenal also lost.
Although I'm glad you didn't watch that Arsenal Tottenham game because
it was nerve-wracking.
Oh my God.
End, eh?
Second half was the longest 45 plus minutes.
This is when Raya gave away a goal.
Exactly. And then the momentum changed.
Yeah. And those Tottenham guys, you see, even against Chelsea, the moment they start getting some momentum, they start putting in goals.
Exactly.
So that's what I'm hoping they do against City.
Well, they should get that momentum from the beginning.
Yeah, but it's tough times for them.
Exactly.
Anyway. But but it was a good trip.
Yeah.
Got back. Now it's settling back to work. Yeah, man. Then episode 10 now, huh? Final episode, season 1 done.
Final episode of season 1.
Yeah.
It's been such a journey and glad that we're here.
Awesome.
Let's see how it goes. Let
me get us started.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Full Scale Podcast. My name is Adrian Twatwa. I'm joined by my friend, colleague, and co-host, Timothy Mukiti. Hi, Tim. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Yeah. We're here filming episode 10.
Yes.
Episode 10, season 1 finale.
Yes.
We've gone through 10. Well, now as of today, we'll have gone through 10 full episodes of the Full Scale Podcast.
Exactly.
Which is amazing to me. We thank God. We thank all the people that have supported us. We thank our viewers and listeners. It's a small milestone, but it's a big one for us, I think.
It is big because I feel like right now we have a right to say we actually do a podcast.
Yeah, we're podcasters. We couldn't say it at episode 9.
Because at episode 2, you might say I'm trying, or you could say that sometimes I shoot a podcast. But I think at 10 you can say we host a podcast.
Yeah,
and it could be a way it could be a nice breaker when you're speaking to people sometimes.
I think so. I told you the other day I introduced myself as a co-host of a podcast for the first time, and it was such a weird feeling. It was so different. Like I've never introduced myself like that in my life. So I think it's a great achievement for us both. We're very happy about what we've done so far, and this episode is going to be more of a reflection, reflecting on season 1, what we've worked through, what we've accomplished, what worked, what didn't, things that we're thinking about going into season 2. So I think it will be more similar to episode 1 than all the other episodes that you may have watched or listened to. That's sort of by design. We started out the season by telling you who we are, what we're hoping to accomplish. And then we went through 8 episodes of essentially doing that, going through the substance. And I think we've created some pretty good episodes that have long lasting. We were just talking about how these are episodes that you can watch them at any point and the lesson should still resonate and should really still be there.
Exactly.
So we're very happy that work is there. That body of work exists. It's standalone and it's evergreen. You can always check it out. Go back. Even us, I think we'll go back and re-listen.
Yes.
And now we're doing episode 10, which is just to bookend the season and say, okay, so we've done these episodes. What are we thinking now? What's coming next?
Yeah.
And what have we learned during the course of these 10 episodes?
Indeed.
So I think that's just to set us up. So maybe we just get right into it and sort of talk about season 1. It's funny because today actually, before coming, I went and rewatched, well, not all of it, but most of episode 1.
Oh.
Just to see like how far have we come. Man, we've really come a long way.
I think we have.
It's so interesting. I encourage anyone to go back and rewatch it. I think as you see the episodes, the quality starts to improve. The audio gets clearer. Tim starts wearing nicer shirts.
Come on. Look who is speaking. Look who is talking.
I'm trying to be like you, bro.
Yeah, come on.
So, I mean, maybe we can just go about going through from episode 1 to now. What do we think are the lessons that we've learned and where we're at now. So just to remind you, in episode 1, you said, the purpose of this podcast is have conversations around how best we can support and champion startups in many ways, how they get set up, how they get financing, how they scale, challenges that they face. We talked about unlocking value for stakeholders across the startup value chain. So founders, investors, other lawyers, accountants, service providers. And that's sort of what we've attempted to do this season. So how well do you think we've done over the course of season 1? What do you think?
Though this is a self-review.
Yeah, of course. So
I do
guys
think,
will let us know.
Exactly. This is a self-review. But given the goal of the podcast and what we set out to do from the very onset, I think we have made some very good progress in terms of the content we wanted to discuss and the value we want to offer. Of course, this is just the beginning of the journey. But in my review already, if we look at some of the matrices, if we were to look at some of the things we said we would want to do, such as discussing how startups get set up. We have already done an episode about structuring your startup, financing. We have discussed, I think, that in 2 or 3 episodes. How they scale. I don't think we have discussed that in terms of scaling per se, but we have discussed the financing cycles of startups, which also demonstrate the scaling aspect of a startup. So we've equally, discussed, provided value to founders. A lot of founders have also reached out, and I'm sure you've received feedback already. And they have found the podcast to be of good value. Investors, lawyers, a lot of feedback from corporate and commercial lawyers, accountants as well. Shout out to even one gentleman who watched our episode bright and early and sent me a text. He was like, "That was so good. I liked it." That's so happy. I think we have made some decent progress in terms of what we have set out to do. We still, of course, have a lot of journey ahead of us. And I think we will only work harder to keep getting better at what we're doing and to keep providing more and more value to our audience.
Awesome.
How do you think we have done so far from
I think we've done pretty well. I don't want to hoot our own horn or anything, but I think for a podcast that I think is unique in the content that we cover, the level of technicality, the age group that we're targeting, I think there are many things that make this a unique podcast. And so doing it without so much of a blueprint, I mean, we had other comparable podcasts that we'd listen to and think about, but in this region, I don't think anyone else is doing exactly the type of podcast that we're doing.
No.
So for us,
not exactly. I am aware there are some podcasters who are doing something that has to do with startup.
Yes.
But I don't think there's one doing exactly what we're doing.
Exactly. And looking at it from our perspective and giving the legal overlay. So that for me, building, it's like 0 to 1, right? It's not like we're just doing another type of podcast that someone else has done and trying to do it better than them. We're sort of creating something that we haven't seen in the market and that we think was missing. And I think for that, we've done a pretty good job. I'd give us, I don't know, a B plus. Something like, I don't want to get too.
I know it's not a C. But I think we have done a decent job.
I think we've put in a good effort. So and hopefully our viewers and listeners agree.
I'm very proud of ourselves, especially knowing what it has taken so far. I think until you start, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, right.
So some of the things we realize is that it's quite time consuming, actually. First of all, preparing for the episodes, shooting the episodes, and then reviewing an episode. It's a lot of work. Now you can imagine if an episode is like running it, let's say it's about 50 minutes. Before we release it, we watch it or listen to it like 4 times.
Correct.
So that's about 4 hours of review, and you have to stop somewhere, think whether that makes sense, whether I should stay. So
and also all the prep work that you've talked about. So thinking about the content for that episode, preparing for it, then and that we do that separately. Then we meet up and prepare again together.
Exchange notes,
Then we show up to shoot. So all in all, I think we thought about it, and it's almost like a real full-time job.
It is. I would think it is. Literally, I think both of us now are running 2 jobs.
Yeah.
There's a main job we do during the day, and then there is a podcast. But I'm all for it, really.
Yeah.
Because I think the amount of growth I think both of us have experienced from just sort of reviewing content that we know of.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever we've been discussing is not new to us. But every time before we shoot an episode, we have to just check our notes. Sometimes even call experts in particular items or just do a bit of research. And I think that in itself has equally helped us in terms of deepening our skills, deepening our understanding in this space, for understanding it from a commercial perspective and all that. But maybe I could ask, what are the biggest lessons that you've picked from episode 1? Season
1. So I think the point you already made in terms of this does take work.
Yeah.
So it may look easy. Hopefully we make it look easy.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's challenging in its own ways. There are things that you have to learn as you go, and you just have to keep doing it, right? So I think learning that it takes work and making sure that you're ready to do the work. So maybe this will also be a good episode for people who are considering going into the podcasting space and the lessons that we've learned and what mistakes you guys can avoid. But
actually, there's a friend who called me to ask me how they want to set a podcast.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was there thinking, wow, I'm already an expert in terms of how people do podcasts. But I felt like I'm still so young in this. Yeah.
And it's so cool to see that just because we've done it, other people now also see that it's very doable, right? You can just wake up one day and go decide to do a podcast. You can. But I think the importance of just doing the work that needs to be done and doing it consistently, I think that's been the biggest one for me in that you have to be consistent. I think we talked about that a lot before we started shooting. We said we want to make sure we're going to make a promise in episode 1 that we're going to release an episode every Tuesday. And so we have to meet that goal and that expectation. So it was cool
and it's still the goal.
Yeah, and it was cool to put that out into the open and make our expectation and put it to the audience so that the audience knows what to expect of us. And then they can hold us accountable every week. And again, I was talking to my barber and he said every Tuesday he's waiting for this episode.
Wow.
He watches every single, he's watched all of them. I went for a haircut 2 days ago. He had already watched all of them. He's waiting for the next one.
You know the funny thing, my barber as well watches and there's that episode where I was talking about the when I got
the guy cut off your
my mustache. Yeah. And it was like a few days later he texted. He was like, "I was worried when you started talking about a barber. I was thinking you're talking about me." Yeah,
that's amazing. So shout out to our barbers. They're like our biggest support system, I guess, after our wives. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
So being able to do it consistently, I think, is just the biggest thing. We talked about this a lot to begin with. Steve, our producer, told us many people drop off after like 4 episodes. They say, I'm not seeing the views that I want to see. I'm not seeing the traction I want. And then they give up. So it was very important for us to just go through and do the full season, which we've basically done as of today. And just being consistent, just doing it each and every day. I saw something recently, also a video talking about when you start out, usually there's a lot of energy in whatever new venture you have. There's so much excitement, energy. You have so much going for that. You have a lot of energy for that thing that you're trying, that new thing.
Yeah.
Then you hit this sort of valley where you're not seeing the results, and yet you have to keep working if this thing's gonna succeed. And it's not until way, way down the line that you see the results of all these efforts that you've put in. And the person said that in between is it's like it's the ticket you have to buy in order to get to the success.
Exactly.
So if you don't do that work, and the whole point of that work, you should actually enjoy it, because what it's doing is it's keeping other people out. It's keeping the people who are not meant for this from doing it, because they're going to quit halfway through.
Exactly.
But if you keep going and doing it, then you're going to get to the other side. So I think that's really where we're at now. We started off super excited. I think we're still excited.
I am still excited.
I don't think anything's going to be as like when I first saw the first episode come out and people are actually subscribing, I was like, what? This is amazing. I think the dopamine hit I got from that on episode 1 compared to now episode 6 or 7. And like we have like 100 views or something. And I'm like, it's not the same. Like I want that same feeling I had when the first episode came out. Exactly. But anyway, we're working now to get to that other side of it. And I think consistency is what's going to get us there.
Exactly.
So I think for me, that's been the biggest lesson. And just trying to do it no matter what. Again, we didn't really have a blueprint, but we just said we're going to do this. Exactly. We're going to release episodes. We could have sat on 8, 9, 10 episodes and waited and seen if we wanted to make them, if we wanted to change anything. But we said, no, we're just going to release these episodes and we're going to build this in public, right? Yeah. Everyone's going to see how we're doing this as we go.
Exactly.
And we'll improve as we go. And anything where we feel like we failed, we'll just learn from it and improve. And I think that's really worked for us. That's another huge lesson for me, I think.
Yeah, actually, to build up on that, I think I remember when a conversation we had when we had shot our episode 1, and we reviewed it, and there were so many things we thought we were not happy with, you know, and we thought we could do better. But we said, you know what, we're going to release it anyway, and then we'll keep building. You know, we won't sit down and keep saying, you know, we are waiting for that perfect episode and then we will launch. Because I think before we released episode 1, it was about 3 or 4 weeks after we shot it. So we reviewed it, discussed a few things. But I love that the fact that we accepted if it's failing, we fail forward. You know, we keep moving, and I think that has been rich. Surprisingly, I think for most of our audience, they're more gracious than we are to ourselves in terms of telling us what they think. You know, they tell us they think we're doing a good job, which I truly appreciate. A good friend of mine is Professor Marek. You better watch this episode, Professor Marek. You know, watch this from Washington.
Wow.
Yeah, and then he sent me a text. He's like, you know, you'll be surprised this still works in Washington as well.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. He's like, you'll be surprised it works. And he provided such good feedback. Okay. And I really appreciated that. So yeah, I'm glad to get to hear some of that feedback. So
that's amazing.
And again, another lesson for me, before I ask you if you have something that you would want to add, is what we said. Remember when we had a conversation, or you know, when we first had a conversation about doing a podcast.
Yeah,
it was such a long time ago. I think we first had that conversation around 2022, and this is 2024 when we shot our first episode, almost 2 years later.
Yeah.
And we kept discussing, asking ourselves, what do we want to, what exactly do we want to do? What audience do we want to reach? What will be the structure of it? And somehow sometimes we were uncertain on whether we want to do it or how we want to do it.
Yeah. So
even when we chose to do it, it's not that we had completely done our job and say we are ready. Finally, we know we are ready. This is how we are going to do it. It was just like, just do it.
Yeah.
You know, you will never make progress. I mean, you could plan all you want, but until you start doing something, you haven't started. So
right, that first step, that immediate thing that's in front of you that you can do to move forward. And I don't think we could ever have been ready. Like even now, I feel like now we're much more prepared for what we're doing, and we have a system and all of this. But even now, there's so many things we're still learning about. Okay, now when you've done with your season 1, what happens? How do you go into season 2? How do you market that? There's so many things that we'll continue to learn, but we never would have learned them if we didn't just start. And I think that's just the importance of it, right? You're never going to be ready 100% for that thing. Just get started, right? As you are is the best way that you can begin that thing, and then you just keep learning as you go.
Yeah, and you know the funny thing, I think that's a theme that's working around my life generally this year. Well, it was more towards end of last year when I made the decision for things that I've always wanted to do, to just do it.
Yeah.
And it started with me running a 42-kilometer marathon.
So you just went and started running?
I just said, I'm going to enlist for 42 kilometers in a marathon, full marathon. I kept running 21 because I thought I don't want to push myself too hard. And then I still think 10 is for me, I think 10 is a little bit of jokes. So I thought 21, I'll keep it at 21. And I decided to do 42.
Yeah.
And the amount of satisfaction I got from doing that marathon made me realize that perhaps we hold back and there's so much more we could do. And we keep just holding back because we think we are not ready for it, or it's too good for us.
Yeah.
And it has been the same theme around things I've done, setting up a law firm. Which I'm happy at the progress that we are making.
Yeah.
The same time, we kicked off the podcast.
Yeah.
And we get less time to play golf now. Yeah. But it's that's just how to do things, I think.
Yeah.
Just do it and learn as you go.
Yeah. And it fits with so many little things that we've seen over the course of the podcast. There was, I think you had a lesson from one of your mentors talking about we all have the same amount of time.
Exactly.
So whether you do it or you don't do it, the time is going to pass. So 2 years, we could still be here in 2024 and we never did the podcast, and we'd still be moving on with our lives. Things would be moving, but this content wouldn't exist. Anyone who's received value from it wouldn't have received that value, wouldn't have made that difference. So just doing it and going forward with it.
Yeah.
I think we also talked about what gets focused on is what gets done. So
exactly.
We've really focused on this thing, and we've tried our best to make sure that it's the type of quality content that we want to be putting out there. And I think it shows in the way that it's come out.
Yeah.
And for me, it's, I guess my highlights from, maybe we'll talk about highlights if that's a thing you want to go into. My highlight for this whole experience, it's never like, it's not the number of subscribers or the fact that we're up on YouTube or on Spotify. It's really small things. It's the fact that I talk to someone, I catch up with someone, they're like, oh, by the way, I've seen your podcast. I found this very interesting. The fact that you guys are talking about this. Or my barber saying that it's cool to see young people on the screen. And he's like, yeah, sometimes we're tired of these old guys. Yeah. They're always the one on the screen trying to tell us all this and that. But it's good to see younger people coming in.
Exactly.
And highlight, actually, this one literally just happened today. So my wife Sandra on her desk, and usually she will watch an episode and she'll tell me what she thought and give me feedback and all of this. So there's an episode she watched. I don't think she gave me feedback, or she told me it was good or something like that. But in my mind, I'm thinking, she's my wife. Of course she's going to say,
obligated
I did
to make you feel good about your ventures anyway. Yeah.
But I found on her desk she had a little sticky note. Sometimes she writes down little things that she wants to keep in mind, or like to meditate on, or to keep in mind as she moves forward with the thing she's doing. She had a little sticky note that says, when you say no to one thing, when you say no, you say no to one thing. When you say yes, you say no to many things. And she had that written on a little sticky note. And I was like, wow, because she didn't even come and tell me like, oh, I listened to this thing and it really resonated or whatever. I just saw it there and I was like, wow.
Yeah, that's something we said in our podcast.
Yeah, and I'm like, cool, that she actually got value out of this thing. And seeing that even her, she's following along and it's making sense. And so that one really touched me. I was like, wow, this is so cool that people are experiencing our podcast, and each of them in their own little way, they're getting something out of it. Even if it's maybe just to pass time and have random guys talking in the background, just something. That's really exciting. And that's been a real highlight for me.
Yes. Very exciting as well.
And that shows also that we've been consistent in what we're doing. Because in episode 1, I think at the end, I said, if we can change one founder's life, that founder who had a messed up cap table, that didn't know to have a shareholders agreement, that didn't, know what to do. If the one person is steered in the right direction and now they can succeed, for me, that's already success. In that maybe that one person can create the next M-Pesa or something and radically change the way that we live our lives and change the course of the direction of the continent. If we can in any way play a part in someone's journey and their startup journey and make it more successful, then that for me is a huge success. And
Indeed.
On the same point of we're not looking for as many views as possible. We're looking for as much value to each viewer.
As much quality views as possible.
Correct, exactly. I was going through our TikTok. We have a TikTok page. And I saw we don't really get many comments on there, but there's one video and someone, I don't even know what we're talking about. I think we're talking about maybe term sheets or safes or something. And then someone wrote in Swahili. So actually I didn't fully understand. I had to go and copy it and put it in Google Translate. And the Google Translate said, you're talking about things we don't understand. That's why you don't have views.
But
Bro, I died.
But surprisingly, I think we are doing worst on TikTok. Actually, of all the platforms, we are doing worse on TikTok. But I understand.
Well,
on TikTok,
I laughed. I said, I'll tell Tim about this one. But yeah, but you guys are talking about things you don't understand. That's why there are no views. So I think that's I think a good reflection so far on the season, highlights, some of the biggest lessons we've learned. Maybe we talk about what went well.
Yeah.
Then we'll talk about what maybe didn't go as well. So what went well for me, what I think went really well first is the space.
Yeah.
I think I guess maybe also it's not a discussion on what didn't go as well. If you look at episode 1, I don't think the set was what we expected or the way that we thought it would come out. So there's a lot, I guess, learning in that. There's a bit of a learning curve.
Yeah.
How do you set up your set? How many mics do you need? How many cameras? How do you want to orient yourselves? All of that, I think, were things we learned a lot from episode 1 through 3. And then we got this space. Which, shout out to Mukiti Advocates for hosting us. You also want to shout out Remy?
Yeah, and shout out to Remington Otieno, who we share this space with. Was been very gracious in terms of, sometimes he wants to do things when we are recording and he's like, okay, it's okay. You guys just record and then I will do what I was planning to do tomorrow.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Remington.
Yeah, that's Remington LLP. Look them up. Law offices.
Yes.
I think the space has been really cool, I think. And it's almost like another character, right? That if you've watched our episodes, I mean, and I encourage those who listen to also check us out on YouTube.
Yeah.
When you see the space, I think you also know what to expect. Exactly. You know the type of things we're going to be talking about. It's going to be in the startup space. It might be substantive, but we'll try to keep it light. There'll be some humor involved, but and also hopefully it's a good set to look at. I think it's a gorgeous set, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I was when we first started filming here, I was telling Steve, like, I don't know, guys are going to see this video and be like, where's this new podcast studio? What's going on? Kumbe, it's a law office. I think that's worked out really well. You want to do one?
Again, I think our partnership. When we started out, being friends does not necessarily mean that you can do a podcast together as easily, or being colleagues,
or any project.
So I think I'm really glad at how this has progressed in terms of how we do it. I think we had some very decent value to each other. I'm actually happy that we sort of share the load. Because we review, exchange notes. Everyone reviews the episode or prepares for it, and then we come together and have a discussion. And then we sort of arrange how we will flow. And that has added so much value. I'm really glad. So let's keep doing this.
It's worked out really, really well.
Again, thank you so much to our producer, Steve, who does a very good job.
Behind the scenes.
And
actually, goes back something I guess I should have also noted. If you're trying to avoid making mistakes and things and do this the way that we've done it anyway, if you think this has been success and you want to replicate something similar, it's everyone doing what they're good at.
Exactly.
Which, again, I mean, and all of these also fit with the startup journey, right? Know who your founders are, the importance of co-founders. So the importance of our partnership, making sure we work well together, but then also knowing what you're good at and what you're not good at. I'm not a social media expert. I'm not a videographer. I'm not a producer. I've never done any of those things. So for us if we were to sit down and say, we're going to make this all on our own, we're going to edit, we're going to do sound, we're going to do lighting, we're going to do social media. You wouldn't be able to run a law office.
You wouldn't be able to work, really. And I'm glad all we have to focus on is the content. Preparing for the content. We review basically for purposes of seeing what things we think we are not happy with. But ideally, I'm glad that we just focus on basically what we know and what we're good at and what we can even have a conversation, even if we were having coffee. Otherwise, if you remember when we started, we didn't even know how people upload these things on on Spotify, how this works.
It's like RSS feed. What
is that? What do you mean by that? So I'm really glad. You had to even take us through the number of cameras we need. We thought you just need one. Why can't your phone work anyway? You just put your phone there, on a tripod, and then it works. The microphone, the mixing. Really glad. And
Awesome. I guess what else has gone well? I think the consistency, which again, I think is just, we can't understate or we can't overstate how important that is. Just being able to consistently do this week in, week out, which, and that's also taken a toll. You know, it's been difficult. There's sometimes where you want to go out on a Friday and just enjoy your night, but we know we need to be here Saturday morning, bright and early to record. We need to focus on this. We need to prioritize this, sometimes to the detriment of other things that we'd want to do. But being able to do this consistently, I think, has been remarkable for me, because it's shown me that we can together work on something and actually do it consistently and produce the same quality week in and week out. So that, for me, it indicates that maybe we can do season 2, we can do season 3, we can do season 4 and 5, as long as nothing changes. And as long as people continue to appreciate the content we're putting out there, then we can continue to do this and do it, you know, I don't know, we'll see how long this goes for, but hopefully for a very long time. Actually to put that into perspective, today morning I was up at 5 to review one of our episodes, and basically I did that from 5 to up to about 7 a.m. So you can imagine if I didn't have to review the episode, perhaps I would have slept in a little bit. So so you have to make a few sacrifices here and there, but I'm really glad at the progress that we are making. Sometimes you sleep less, but it's really worth it. It's all worth it. And what also went well, I think, getting an analysis on who our viewers are, and starting to see that the people we're targeting, you know, younger audiences that are focused on the continent, on building things, understanding that that's kind of where we're ending up in terms of who's viewing us. I think that's been it's.
And when we say younger, it's relative, you know. It's not younger by saying that we are focusing on people who are 18 years old.
No,
I mean, we would be happy if they watch.
Yeah, of course.
But it's people who are actually interested in either making investments in the startup space, people who are founders and of startups that are scaling up. People are practicing in the in the startup or in the finance space, and this would add value to them. Lawyers. So I think we are sort of. I think from the data we have received so far, we are making progress in terms of reaching that specific audience, and that's good.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't. Do you have other things that went well that you want to talk about? I don't know. Even Steve might have some things to tell us.
I mean, on the numbers, I'm happy we are past 200 subscribers.
Yeah, right.
But then what surprises me, we could have as many as 600 viewers and that's on YouTube alone. On an episode. But then we have 200 subscribers. We need to find a strategy to convince more people, to subscribe, because that reduces the work we have to do in terms of letting people know an episode is out. Because if you've subscribed, you get notified. We don't have to let you know through other means, or maybe post it on our Instagram. But we're still happy to do that. So that's progress. At least that's a milestone. And we're growing, so we're glad.
I mean, we started out, we had 0 subscribers. So to have 200 plus, in fact, I would have checked
200 people who have put faith in us.
How many we have now? I think it's like 220 something. I don't even remember.
It's grown a bit
this morning, but but we're getting there. When we'll get to 300, I'll be very happy. Even 400, we'll just keep growing. But maybe that goes well into what's not gone as well as we'd have liked so far. So I guess view count, much as we're not focused on view count, it's more so we have more viewers and listeners than people subscribing. So I guess that's what we're now trying to bridge. So if you are watching, if you are listening, our one thing that we ask you to do is please subscribe to the channel, like, comment, engage with us, because we're trying to really build a community of folks who care about this type of stuff. So if you subscribe, then that's an indicator that you're one of those people, and we'll continue to create content that focuses on you and focuses on the things that you want to hear and learn about. So that's the only thing that we ask of you. Please make sure that you subscribe to the channel and comment and like. And so...
And equally rate us. For those who listen through Spotify, we would appreciate you rating us so that we know where we stand. Because at the end, at the back end, we get a summary of the data, and we are able to know what exactly. It's actually a way of providing feedback without necessarily either calling or texting or sending a full comment, because when we review the data, we're able to see where we are settling, you know, and what we can improve. So please subscribe, tell a friend to tell a friend. That adds value. If you know somebody who could benefit from this type of content, there's no reason for it wouldn't be good for us to produce content that is good if it's only for our audience. We would want it to reach as many people as it can add value to. Yeah.
And to continue to just build that community. I'd love for us to get to a point where we have, I don't know, a listserv or something, or we're able to directly communicate with our audience and say, hey guys, you've been interested in all this content. We're now doing a special thing. So maybe those are things that we're going to explore more going into season 2. Maybe we'll have specific things just for our subscribers. And then we can even give you additional value above and beyond what everyone else has access to. So I guess what didn't go as well was not being able to convert as many viewers into subscribers. So far, yeah. And going forward, we're going to do a better job and really focus on trying to close that gap. So I guess that's the way I'm thinking about this portion of the segment is what didn't go as well as we'd have liked, and what are we going to do to sort of address that going forward? Because otherwise, if you don't take any lessons from it, then it's just a random failure or something. And we talked about this in episode 1 as well, that if there are any failures, we're going to fail forward and we're going to learn and improve.
We'll pick the lessons and keep improving. And
do you want to give us another one?
Well, some of them, of course, some of the issues that I think perhaps did not go as well. Of course, we were not very happy with how the lighting on episode 1 was, but it's because we started shooting when it's daylight, and then it went into the night, the darkness setting, and then the lighting, there was no way to adjust the lighting, while you're already shooting. So for some part of the video, you see, if you're watching on the video, you see it looks a particular way, and then as it proceeds, the lighting gets harsh, because the lighting was set for day, and when lighting sets, it's really harsh, and but that was okay. It was episode 1, baby steps. So.
Plus we learned from it, right? And
we learned from it,
figured out what we want to do in terms of set design and where we want to be recording. I think we were also really tired for that first one. At least I was. I remember I was on several cups of coffee. We didn't start recording the time that we wanted to. So there were many things that didn't really work out the way we wanted.
And it was a bad mistake for me to play a round of 18 holes before we shot that episode. Because I was tired. I was taking a couple of cups of coffee, but was it? Well, I still did it. But
and I'm proud that we actually did it, because we could have quit.
You're fresh.
Now we're much more fresh. We show up in the morning, we get it done, so then we can go play golf afterwards.
Exactly.
So I think the quality issues for episode 1 and, the earlier episodes, and just trying to make sure that we improved on those. I mean, I don't think we can sit here and really say we've had a big failure. Like, there's a way that the podcast has just gone left. But I think there are those small things that we just want to continue improving on as we go. So the quality, the audio, we started introducing chapters, these little timestamps, so you can scroll at the bottom of the video and
see what really speaks to you.
Even in the audio version, those are laid out so that you can fast forward to specific sections. I think things like that, little improvements that can improve the way that people are interacting with the content, or remove any barriers to entry. So maybe someone clicks on the video and they say, wow, this is an hour and 10 minutes long. I'm not going to sit here and watch an hour and 10 minutes, much as I wanted to know what a safe is. But then maybe you can just scroll to the section that says what is a safe, and then you can just watch that, and that's easy enough. So just making it as easy for people to understand what's going on, closed captions, the little subtitles, so people can understand, especially on the reels and stuff, so people can see what it is that we're talking about. Little things like that we've been improving as we go. I think those are the ones that I really like, because we're slowly improving it to the point where, I don't know, by the time we get to season 3, I'm hoping we won't even recognize what it is that we're doing when we look back at season 1.
Exactly. I think so as well. And even personally, in terms of how we present the content, I think one thing particularly for myself that I wasn't very happy with, it has just happened when we did episode 1, is whereby you speak and then you do a filler, like but I realize it's not as easy to get them out. It requires a bit of work, and I think we are trying to see how that can be done personally.
I think we're both improving in that way. Speaking in front of people or in front of a camera, an audience, it takes confidence in yourself.
Yes.
And there are times when you're thinking about what to say and you're buffering in a way. I mean, I've seen many things on that and how to improve. Just trying to not say anything. Let the silence be.
And it
Take
works.
the time, think. And it also gives you more authority in the way that you present content.
It works because it works. It works, but then it's hard to remember it when you're running through a thought process.
Yeah.
Because when you keep quiet, you allow yourself to breathe in and maybe allow the thought that is developing in your mind to flow properly.
Yeah.
But it's not as easy. It's easier said than done. Yeah.
Correct. And there's also some like a level of discomfort when there's a silence.
Yeah.
Because then everyone's wondering what's coming next. So I think it's a subconscious way to keep ourselves comfortable as we're talking, as we're thinking, as we're waiting to deliver the next point. Anyway, we're going to just continue trying to improve that way. And when we don't manage to do it, Steve will cut it out in post.
Yeah.
I think that's a good summation of sort of what's not worked, what's worked well. But more importantly, we'd love to hear from our audience, guys. And I'm going to set a challenge at the end of this episode. Well, I mean, I guess I'll do it now.
Yeah.
Everyone who's watching this video, everyone who's listening to this audio, just do us one. We're literally asking you to do one thing. Well, maybe two things. The one thing was to subscribe.
Yeah.
The second thing I'm going to ask is just leave one comment.
Yeah.
Leave it. It could be one of many things. You could write anything. You could just say, I love Full Scale Podcast, or I love Arsenal, or I hate Arsenal.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. But I'd encourage you to tell us, what did you think of season 1? If you could just write that down. Like, this is what I thought of season 1. Season 1 was good, was bad, was whatever, for this reason. Just give us something that we can take and learn from and figure out ways that we can improve or continue doing that thing. Or what do you want from season 2? So I've watched season 1. I've listened to season 1. These are the things that I've learned. But I really didn't see you guys touch on this topic. I really want more of this.
Yeah.
If you could tell us what that thing is, because we don't know. We're making our best guess, our best estimation as to what you want. But if you could tell us specifically, I want more of this, or I want to learn about this topic, then we can cue that up for season 2 as something that we're going to delve into. Or something you appreciated about the podcast, or that you didn't appreciate.
Yes.
Or anything really, just engaging with us in the comments. I think that is something that I'm really, really hoping for, specifically for this episode. So if you can look back on episode 10, had the most comments out of all of the episodes, I'd be very happy to see that. So that's my challenge to everyone who's watching or listening to this episode. Even me, when I watch it, eventually I'll also put a comment down there.
Exactly.
So
yeah. Okay. Yeah. And I think that perhaps we could take us perhaps we could even have a discussion around the feedback that we have received so far.
Yeah.
And I think a good number of people have already done that. We have received a lot of feedback, constructive criticism as well. And I'm really glad for that.
Yeah.
To be honest, I think I really appreciate some of the robust feedback that we have received from our friends and viewers. I think a special mention to Teddy as well as Remington. I think they have provided some very robust feedback, what they think has been going good and what they think could be done much better. I think I appreciate that very much, and I've just mentioned but a few. We have received a lot of that feedback, and I think we have kept challenging our friends and colleagues and audience to let us know their views and feedback, what they think is working, because the goal for us is to be able to do as solid a podcast as possible, as solid podcast that adds value as possible, And when we say that adds value, if it could add value to one investor, or it could add value to one founder, or the turn around one startup, or maybe equip one lawyer better, or equip one finance practitioner better, or somebody who is curious to learn and wants to know more, if it could equip just one, would be very happy. And the thing is, for us to be able to do that and do it effectively in a good way, we really appreciate feedback. Let us know what you think has been going well, what hasn't been going well, because it really helps us in terms of making sure that we are doing so much better. Yeah. Do you want to touch on some specific feedback?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. The person who gives me most feedback is my wife.
Yeah.
She's always there. She always watches the videos. So thank you. Shout out to Sandra for that. We also receive good feedback from Eva. So shout out to her as well. Sandra's feedback usually is, she loves the content. So she's always pretty solid. She thinks that's always amazing. It's the set design. She's always like, those flowers were not centered. Or there were cups there. So I'm glad that she'll watch this episode and she'll see there are no cups here this time. Where she's like, she wants them to be fancy cups or coasters. Sometimes I'm missing. Anyway.
Yeah.
The big one for her is she likes the fact that there's humor in our content, and we sort of try to keep it light and have times when we're just having banter and random stuff. She likes that because in her view, our podcast is really content heavy. It's super substantive. It can be very technical. So in her view, if we didn't have the humor, it would basically be like a lecture. Like you've sat down and you're watching a lecture, and it's a podcast, but you're also wanting some entertainment, some levity, something else out of it. So she thinks we strike a good balance in that way. So because of that, I'll continue making jokes, my random dad jokes and things that may not be funny to others, but that keep the mood light for us. So I think that was really cool feedback from her. I also got feedback in a WhatsApp group. So our feedback comes in many different ways. So we see it in comments, but also people who know us reach out.
Yeah.
A friend of mine in one of my WhatsApp groups, he said that he thinks we're giving away value for free on this podcast, which I thought was the highest compliment, because that's exactly what we want to do. What we
set out to do.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's exactly what we set out to do. And when we get that comment, we are happy.
Yeah.
I think there's someone who has asked us whether we think it's smart to provide such information or knowledge sometimes for free without charging. Maybe you should come with a fee note from Mukiti Advocates. But we are very
by
happy.
design.
We are
it's
very
a feature,
happy.
not a bug.
That's a plan, really.
Yeah. And that's really what we want to do. We want to just keep bringing people together that find value in this. And we're doing it absolutely for free. And at our own personal cost, because we think it's worth it. And we think there's a lot of value in providing value to other people. And so I think we're just going to keep doing that. And as long as people keep finding the value and let us know that that's what you're experiencing, then we'll keep pushing forward. Do you want to touch on a few other comments or feedback we've received?
I think that's a good summary of it.
I want to shout out some people on YouTube.
Oh yeah, sure. Okay. Sure. Happy place.
So these are specifically comments that we've received on YouTube. Some of them are, they're all great.
Yeah.
It's just I find some of them just so interesting. So on episode 1, we had a gentleman, Ogbefun Elijah.
Yeah.
He said, getting corporate lawyers to talk about this on entrepreneurship, investment, and startups excites me so much. Thanks so much. Much love from Nigeria.
Wow.
Right? Such a
thank
cool
you so
one.
much.
Right. So thank you, Elijah. Much love to you from Nairobi.
From Nigeria.
Well, for us from Nairobi.
Oh, from Nairobi.
From Nairobi to him.
Yeah. Much love to you.
Yeah, and thank you so much. Keep watching, keep subscribing, and keep letting us know what you like and what you don't like. We'll keep doing this as much as we can.
Exactly. And actually to add on to that, from the data that we've already received, we are happy that our audience is cross-border, transcends boundaries, national boundaries, because we have a lot of views from an audience, sometimes from the US.
Yeah.
And that's encouraging.
Shout out to our American viewers.
To see feedback from Elijah from Nigeria, and our target audience, actually, broadly, despite that we are shooting this content from Nairobi, and there's a lot of information that relates to Kenya and East Africa. Our target audience is African. By and large, or people interested in the startup and investing in the startup space, or doing business, or being founders in Africa.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that we have already started receiving feedback from some people already engaging with that content from different locations.
Yeah, and it shows also that the content applies no matter where you are.
Exactly.
Right? Even if you are an African in the diaspora in the US and you're trying to set up a business or a startup there, it may not be a startup that's here. I'm also excited that those people are getting value out of it. I was just talking to a friend of mine he's running a startup in the US. He's Nigerian born. He's Nigerian American. So the company he's building is not focused on Africa. It's very much a US centric business. But the lessons that we're talking about here also apply to his business. Yeah. So for me, in my mind, I'm like, even if you're African and you're out there and this also helps you build, then I think we're still giving value, and that value will eventually also find its way onto the continent just by virtue of these founders being African. So another one, shout out episode 3. We have a comment from Winjoy Kirimi who said, "Hi, this is very educative, interesting, and inspiring. Reminds me of my days at the defunct Inoreru Uni studying business management. Keep it up. Upscale it to a regular show. I love it."
Oh, nice.
Which I really love that one. I love the upscale it to a regular show. That's what we're doing, right?
Exactly.
So keep tuning in. I hope Winjoy found episode 4 and 5 and all the other ones after that. So please keep liking, keep watching the episodes and let us know. Joseph Yahweh, I'd always assumed VC and PE were interchangeable. Thank you for teasing apart the nuances of these two entities and their different expectations / impact. So I think that was also a really cool one. Thank you to Joseph. Especially a more technical one, right? Making sure that the technical points of what we're dealing with are coming out and people are really appreciating them. That was really cool. And the last one I had, this is Johnson Omwega on episode 6. He said, quite informative, coherently articulated and devoid of complexities. Keep up the good work. So very complex comment. But I'm loving that
thank you so much to Johnson. Actually, I know Johnson. He equally reached out on WhatsApp and he provided very good feedback. Thank you very much. He's in finance,
it's good to see also people in those sectors really getting value out of this. Someone also reached out on LinkedIn and they're like, "This is really cool." Especially people who are getting into the startup space or who are in it. They keep reaching out on LinkedIn and just encouraging us to keep doing it. Or sometimes someone just sends me a text, we'll post the status on WhatsApp or something. And they say, "Keep them coming. We love this. We're watching. Keep doing this." So thank you guys so much for all of that.
We truly appreciate. So maybe we could cover a little bit of what our audience could expect from season 2.
Sure.
Which is number one, we will definitely be covering additional topics. Some of them could be a build-up from what we have already discussed in season 1. Because, of course, some of the content we provided, we would mention some concepts that would deserve being a single episode in themselves for you to do them justice. So, of course, you expect that we will delve into a bit of that. Such as some of the discussions you expect to get from us in the season 2 include due diligence, valuations, exits. We will start having guests now. Our plan was, because we are starting out, we wanted first to build momentum and even understand what we are doing ourselves before we can start bringing in guests.
An MVP, so to speak.
Right? This was actually an MVP, minimum viable product, which we have done a bit of testing. And the goal was we first develop and also to be clear exactly what we're doing and also to build a bit of confidence and see how what audience we are reaching. Because whether this is the target audience we are reaching, we even determine it could help us improve the tone of the podcast or the kind of guests that we bring, what kind of value they will be able to add. So from season 2 onwards, you can be sure we will be intermittently having guests because the plan is either in every couple of episodes we do between ourselves, we have a guest who speaks to a specific item. It could be valuations, or it could be a founder who has been running the startup journey, giving their story. So that's you'll be able to see guests who provide you with some feedback or comments firsthand.
Awesome.
Would you want to add more of what to expect on season 2?
And I think that's sort of a good summary of what we're thinking for season 2, in terms of more of the topics that we've been covering, more in depth, additional topics, and then bringing on some guests who are going to be able to speak fluently about those specific topics and give us more firsthand experiences about the things that we've been talking about here, more theoretically. I think season 2 a big one for me is also we're now going to start curating the content more for our viewers and listeners specifically. So this is why I'm beating this drum of give us your feedback, give us your comments, because season 1 going into it, we had our best understanding or our thinking on what people are going to want, and we also wanted to lay a framework or create a framework of understanding, so that by the time we get to seasons 2, 3, 4, when we say MVP, when we say seed round, Series A, price rounds, we all are familiar with what we're talking about. So that really was what season 1's mission, the goal for season 1 is to make sure everyone understands this core basic, has this basic understanding of what we're going to deal with.
Exactly.
And now we can go deeper and start bringing in people who have done this stuff on a day-to-day basis.
Or when we have a guest who says MVP, talks of Series A, Series B.
10x, multiples, all that.
We don't want the audience now wondering, yay, what's that?
What's this guy talking about? Yeah. So season 2, I think, is going to be a lot more focused on what you guys want to see and hear. So, which is why it's so important for you to tell us what that is. So that from season 2, episode 1, we're really curating content now that's really focused on what you want to see and not so much on what we think is important for you to understand. So I think that's going to be the biggest shift in my view in terms of seeing more people. So seeing more than just me and Tim on the podcast, but then also seeing things that are directly geared towards what you as a viewer or a listener want to learn more about.
Yeah, including guests that you would want, just specific guests who you know would add value to this conversation. Please let us know. I think we can provide. You can even reach out to us through our inboxes or
LinkedIn or
LinkedIn. Yeah, let us know if you know of a particular guest who you think would add value to this conversation, and we can have a chat with them and align.
Yes, please do. Or ask the guest to reach out to us or reach out to us directly. Either way, we'd be very happy to interact with. The more interactions we have with you guys off the screen, I think
the more
is really,
value we can provide. Yes.
100%.
Yeah.
I think that's generally what we're thinking for season 2. Tim will still be here in nice shirts, nice glasses. Beard will be bearding.
Okay.
So more bearding in season 2.
I'm thinking of going monk, guys. I'll be all clean shaven. You wait and see. Yeah.
I doubt that's gonna happen. But that's generally I think what we're thinking for season 2. That's how season 1's gone. It's been a more light-hearted episode, which I think is easier for both of us. Also, we don't. It's not as much heavy lifting to prepare. I feel like this is how those two guys, the shits and gigs.
Oh yeah. I think for them,
I feel like this is how it goes more often for them.
Exactly. Just sit and just the conversation starts.
Talk about things. Have life
stuff. Yeah.
So. That's, I think, a good summary. Should we move into our final 2 segments, or unless there's anything there that you wanted to touch on for season 1 and 2?
No, I think we have discussed in good detail what we wanted to discuss. Basically, do a review of what season 1 has been to us.
Self-review. The other reviews to come in the comments.
What it has been, how what lessons we've picked, and all that. But I think the biggest highlight for me is some of the feedback that we have received. To be honest, some of the feedback has been very, very, very encouraging. Including calls from friends. Who call you, they're like, I've seen this podcast. I've actually listened to 4 of your episodes, and this is what I think. I really, really appreciate that. So I think that's very encouraging, and I think that's our biggest highlight. For me, it's a highlight to know that when we started out, we didn't have an audience. Literally, our audience were our wives. The guys. We had a very small audience when we started out. The first we reviewed the first episode, but yeah. So to get to see our audience growing and to also get feedback from people who believe that we are adding value, that's very encouraging. And I think that's we hope to keep adding value and to do more, and please spread the word to other people who can benefit from this episode, this podcast, and can find value in it. So Adrian, perhaps you can let us know. Today it's your turn to let us know about
wisdom from
the course.
It's funny. You're the one who actually just played. So if anything,
more recently,
I was thinking you should even be the one to give us wisdom. But I'm happy to.
Nope.
I'm happy to.
I will have my turn.
You'll have a turn. Season 2, episode 1. I'm waiting for yours. So My wisdom from the course today is about the traditions in golf. Well, one in particular. But so generally, golf is a game that has a lot of traditions.
Yeah.
So tee time, I think that's a big one. TEE, like what time you tee off. That's a big thing. You know, we say we have an 8:05 a.m. tee time. That means you all need to be there well in advance of 8:05. I would say maybe 30 minutes, 40 minutes, especially if you want to hit the range before you start. So being time conscious and respecting people's time and honoring the tee time is very important. The dress code, right? It's one of those sports where you have to dress in a very specific way. And if you're not dressed that way, then you're not fit to play, essentially. So you have to respect the premises, the golf course, the people you're playing with, and show up in the correct attire for that. There's also when people are about to take their shot, you need to be quiet. You make sure you're not in their periphery or distracting them or making unnecessary movements. So again, respecting the fact that someone is about to do something that, you know, they think is important and they're going to do their best. So give them the best opportunity to do that by not distracting them. And the one that I think is really, really interesting is also at the beginning and at the end, there's usually a nice handshake.
Yeah, a handshake.
So you shake someone's hand.
You see people, you know, sometimes you still have your club on hand, your putter, you're removing your gloves,
exactly.
your balls. So people are trying to scamper to find a way to shake
it's
hands.
It's a little dance, and I really like it because at the end especially, everyone, I mean, at the beginning usually, so you and I play, so we'll know each other.
Exactly.
And we'll have set our goals for the day or whatever. But usually they'll pair us with a third or fourth person.
Yeah.
And then when we start out, we're shaking hands because we don't know these people and we're just meeting them and saying, hi, who are you? What do you do? All that. Yeah. But by the 18th hole, when we're done, we're shaking hands and now it's sort of different. We now know each other. We've
almost
experienced.
Friends now. You know, when you're shaking hands at 18th, you almost become like comrades.
Yeah. And it's like, when am I going to see you next? Let's have another game. There's so much that I like about that tradition. Also, the fact that you shake hands and you take off the hat that you're wearing just, you know, as a sign of respect.
Yeah.
So all these traditions for me, the theme is really like respect. Yeah. Respecting the people that you're with, the people that you're encountering. And it shows up in the game of golf, but I guess it also shows up in the real world.
Yeah.
In those same little things, right? If someone's doing something important, just be quiet or let them do that thing and respect the fact that they're doing something important to them at that moment. Being on time for things, right? That's another big one, especially in Africa. I mean, I don't want to call out Africans, but we know time consciousness is not always a thing that people is top of mind. So showing up for things on time and respecting people's time is a big thing. Honoring your word. If you say you're going to do something, do it and follow through. And also just that shaking hands, right? And acknowledging other people. It's very easy to show respect to people who are quote unquote above you or they're where you want to be. Yes. But even the people who are not maybe where you want to be, right? Everyone in the building, from the receptionist to the managing partner to the person who's cleaning the building, you know, they all deserve respect just because they're humans and we're all coexisting in this world. So I think that's something that golf really shows me. It's no matter who you are, if it's the person if it's your caddy or if it's a security guard or it's the golf captain, whoever it is, show them respect, honor your word, and just follow through on the things that you say you're going to do. And just showing respect to people across the board. It's something it's a huge theme in golf, and it reflects in the real world. And I think it's something so important. And it teaches me every time I go to play golf that, you know what, maybe I should just shake people's hands, you know, just take off your hat, kidogo, show respect to people in any way that you can, no matter who they are in your day-to-day life. So that's my wisdom from the course for today.
Yeah, see, already you had a lot of wisdom to provide.
Much as I didn't play yesterday.
Yeah. Well, you know, surprisingly, when you talked about time, when I played yesterday, I had a tee off time of 7:30 a.m. I had to wake up at 5:30.
Wow.
And yesterday, I'm sure when our audience interacts with this episode, it will be way a couple of days later. But yesterday was a public holiday, so you can imagine waking up at 5:30 a.m.
on a public holiday,
so that you don't miss your tee off time at 7:30. Yeah.
And were you guys? Was everyone on time for your tee time?
Yeah.
That's amazing. See, that's good.
In fact, we started at like 7:40, but because there was a bit of traffic, you know,
ahead of you.
But
the last time we went for one of those tournament style games, I remember we had different tee times.
Yes.
You were shortly after me, but similar timing, but different groups.
Exactly.
And I remember getting there and I was like 4 minutes. It was like 4 minutes to my tea time. I get to the starter hut, and none of the other 3 people showed up on time.
Wow.
And so the guy tells me, well, now you should go play quickly and catch up to the team ahead, and then play with them because they're 3 and their 4th person didn't show up.
Yeah.
So it threw everyone off because now I'm super nervous. I have to now tee off alone, which is not so bad because no one's watching, but I have to tee off alone. Then I need to rush and hurry and catch up to those guys ahead of me.
Yes.
And then they're like, who is this guy that's also now part of our team? And then, so it throws everything off. But if everyone had shown up on time, would have been a completely different experience. But anyway, we live and we learn. So yeah, that's the wisdom from the course for this week. Wow. For the last time in season 1.
Yeah, for the last time in season 1. Yeah. But there'll still be more.
Yeah, more to come in season 2.
Seasons. Yeah.
How about something interesting for the week? You wanna tell us something interesting you learned?
Yes. So surprisingly, there's something that was interesting that I learned this week. Has to do with golf as well.
Okay.
And it's not wisdom from the course.
Okay.
So when I played yesterday, I played yesterday for a charity event, which was hosted by Sauti Village.
Okay.
And Sauti Village is I would say, I don't know how it's organized, but their goal is to free communities from poverty by focusing on mentorship and empowerment.
Okay.
But what I found profound, and I'll tell you why. So I played with when I went to tee off, I was paired with guys I didn't know. So but one gentleman who was in my flight is called Jay Biro.
Okay.
Jay turned out to be the founder of Sauti Village.
Oh wow, that's
the
cool.
sponsor. So yeah, I didn't know, but as you play, you start to have a conversation.
Yeah.
So I decided to Google a bit to check out their website and see, what Sauti Village is about. It turns out that so Jay was born in one of the large slums in Kenya.
Okay.
It's called Mathare slum.
Okay.
And life in a slum in Kenya is not that easy. And he had to start fending for himself or taking care of his family when he was 8 years old as a beggar in the streets. So he was a beggar. And then from the website, really, what he says is that when begging is not working for you, you start to be a petty thief. So he started stealing, and he was in prison at 9 years of age.
9,
yeah. Imagine a 9-year-old in prison.
Wow.
And he says his life turned around when he got some mentors who started to introduce him to the possibility of a better life. And that's why he set up Sauti Village, to now mentor and empower, to create a network that mentors and empowers younger people, other people, to try. Basically, he says that his life turned around because people were able. Actually, he lives in the US now. He works and lives in the US, so he comes to the country once in a while. And he was saying it's that there were people who were able to show him the possibility of something different, through mentorship. And his goal, why he was actually running that charity. So it was a 3-day event, I think more than 3 days. And he is training some children from the slums to play golf, because he thinks that when they play golf, it will introduce them to people who can introduce them to a different perspective.
Wow.
They can have conversations with people who can challenge them for better. He thinks it's a good avenue for that. And I really found that profound, because sometimes perspectives, you need just one person to tell you that there's a possibility of something different.
Yeah.
And your life could turn around. From, if you saw him yesterday, you'd think that story is incredible. Come on, you're lying to us. It's a big lie. Prison at 9. Come on, we have seen better movies. Wow. Yeah. So that was something I thought was profound, especially because personally, the thing about the growing slums in the country bothers me a bit, because I think there is more that can be done to improve the livelihoods. We can't be a country of 5 million who have a lot and 50 million who have nothing. I think we can do much better, and to see that people are taking initiative like Jay, and after the life turned around for him, I'm sure there are people he grew up with who things went completely south, and he's trying to do that to change. I think that was cool, and I would encourage everybody who's in our audience, perhaps check them out, see how you can support Sauti Village, because for me, I found that profound, and I was really glad, by coincidence, I was just paired with him.
Wow.
And there are perks to it. Actually, when you play with the sponsor, literally cameramen follow you through. So I got so many photos.
Wow. So they have video that footage of your birdie.
As you swing, as you're driving, cameras.
That's so cool.
Anyway,
amazing. That's such a really good one. Just the importance of being exposed to people, to new things, just having your worldview changed and understanding that there's more out there, I think is such a huge. And on many of the stories where I see where someone was completely out on their luck, they had nothing going for them, and then their life turned around. Usually my first question is like, who was the mentor? Who was the person that stepped in and helped them? So it's usually other people, and that's just a really cool story. And even us, if there's any way that we can help people and mentor them, even if it's just through these videos, but also in other ways, we would love for that.
I mean, when you climb up, don't tear down the ladder. Or even create a ladder and extend it down to other people and provide an avenue for them
and create the blueprint
for them to do better. So that's a lovely. So what has been an interesting thing of the week for you?
Interesting thing of the week. It's funny because actually it didn't happen this week, but I thought about it this week because I watched there was a podcast I listened to. I think it was the Alex Hormozi podcast. Where he had another podcaster on the podcast, and the question he asked him was, when you're not in the room, how do you think, or how would you like people to describe your podcast when you're not in the room? Which is also similar to like, as branding, like when Tim's not in the room, what do people say about him? And that's how you sort of get a sense as to what do people really think about you, because they're not, a lot of the time they won't say it to your face. So which got me thinking about our podcast and how I would want people to describe our podcast if we were not in the room. And it also fit well with the reflections on season 1, going into season 2, that type of thing. So I guess I'll say what I think, because I've tried as much as possible not to give it thought before now, so I can think of it on the fly. But I'll ask you as well after this what you think, or how you'd want people to describe us. For me, it's there's the technical side. Like, I would want people to say that these are guys who know what they're talking about when it comes to actual technical, legal, investment, that space generally. So startups, businesses, formation, regulation, whatever it is, these are people who know what they're talking about, and they can be trusted. You should, of course, verify everything, no matter, even if it's us or it's whoever you think is the authority on these subjects, you should always verify for yourself. But being people who are considered thought leaders, or people who know what they're talking about, and they're able to convey that message or that information in a clear way that's accessible, that's affordable, because it's pretty much free as long as you can afford an internet connection, and that are so on the technical side, I would want us to be people who people think of as guys who know what they're talking about, and they're able to articulate and speak to these points in a well thought out, systematic way over the course of 8, 9, 10 episodes, and that are providing real value compared to other things maybe that people are watching or listening to out there. That would be the biggest one for me. But as I also told you this when we first started, a huge success metric for me personally is I want people to be able to, if they one day see us out at, I don't know, NSK or something, and we're just, randomly having a good night out, I would want them to be able to see us and say, wow, I feel like I know these guys. Just because I've been watching them for however many seasons, and they seem to be really chill guys, and they even feel free to come say hi and say, oh, hey, I've listened to your episodes, or I've watched your episodes, and this is what I think. Could you guys do more on this and that? And having us being approachable, I would love for that, because I would hate for us to do all this and put out all this great content, and then people see us and they're like, but those guys, they seem like they're so stuck up. Like they don't feel like the guys I would want to have over for dinner, right?
Yeah,
like
they're so stiff.
That's what I want us to create, that feeling when people listen and watch us, to the point where,
as in, provide deep and meaningful content.
Yes.
But in a manner that is not stuffy.
Exactly.
That is relatable.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes it easy for you to take it and appreciate the value, right?
Yes. And that makes us feel like we're all sitting around just having a nice chat.
A nice chat, exactly.
Yeah. That's for now. And maybe I'll ask the question again, season 2 finale.
Yes.
But for now, that's sort of how I feel. What about you? What do you think?
How I would want people to describe this podcast if we weren't in the room. I would want for people to say that they have derived immense value from the podcast. Like I have learned so much, or I have found new perspectives, or I found that interesting, that particular perspective that you shared interesting. So that's how I would want the audience to be. If people can say that, I think that would be a big win.
Yeah.
That there's value. And it goes back to what you just said. For us to be able to provide that value, then we have to demonstrate technical expertise or skills or understanding of our topics pretty well. That means we have to review our notes, consult where we have to. But definitely, I would want the audience to derive as much value as possible from listening or engaging with our podcast.
Awesome. And I think it goes back to my challenge to all of our viewers and listeners.
Yeah.
Maybe you could tell us, how do you describe this podcast? Since we're not in the room with you at that point you're writing or communicating it to us, please let us know. What do you think, or how would you describe this podcast to people? Because we'd be very interested to hear what you guys think. Yeah, I think that's pretty much the episode. Just a few housekeeping things. Again, please write something in the comment box, whatever it is. We would love to hear from you guys. We'd love to get your feedback. I always say this in every episode, but again, this is not legal advice. I don't think there's really anything that would be considered legal advice in this episode. But just in case you thought that this was a podcast to get legal advice, it's not. We just try to provide as much value as we can before you then go on to talk to your legal advisor. So again, this is not legal advice. Please like, subscribe, comment, share this episode with folks. We know this is not the most substantive episode we've shot, but hopefully it's still entertaining and you still get value out of it. And it demonstrates what we've been doing or trying to do for season 1, and hopefully gives you an indicator as to what's to come in season 2. And I think that's it. I think maybe we wanted to just also communicate that we'll be taking a short break between season 1 and season 2.
I think about 3 weeks.
We'll
be taking a short break of about 3 weeks, basically to take stock of season 1, plan around season 2.
Read your comments.
And take in your feedback. So basically we'll just it's like a stock taking. We'll just do a bit of review.
Lining up guests,
because
if you want to be a guest,
now we will be having guests going forward. But I think we need to provide clarity. When we say we'll be having guests, it's not on every single episode. We will have a couple of episodes we do by ourselves, as we have been doing. And then we will have every once in a while, we'll have guests. So we still also need to line up the guest as well. So please be on the lookout for season 2. In no time we'll be back.
Awesome. And I think that's it. A big thank you again to all of our viewers and listeners and subscribers. Thank you so much for tuning in every week. Thank you for walking this journey with us. We're still very young, early stage as well, pre-seed, seed, but we have our MVP. We're working on it now. We're going to iterate. We're going to keep pivoting. As founders, we're going to keep relying on each other, building our partnership, making sure that we're aligned moving forward. We're going to keep taking feedback from our viewers and listeners so that we have that product market fit. And then we're just going to keep scaling this thing until we go full scale.
Indeed.
That's us. We're the Full Scale Podcast. Check us out everywhere you find your podcasts. And we'll be back with season 2 before you know it. Thank you so much. That's us for season 1.
Bye.
Bye.